In Luke chapter 11, the disciples asked Jesus very directly, Lord, teach us to pray. All right. The scene is set, right? I mean, the ball is sitting on prayer is a two-way street tee, just waiting for Jesus to knock it out of the park. Guys, it's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. So here's how you pray. You talk to God and you get real quiet and you listen real hard. Put on your listening ears and you listen for Him to talk back to you. Is that what He said? No, He said nothing of the sort. He said to them, when you pray, say, Father, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Nothing about prayer being a two-way street. Perfect place for Jesus to tell us, but He said nothing of the sort. There's nothing in the Bible at all, anywhere, to indicate to us that prayer is a two-way street. It's just not there. Well, what about the still small voice? I mean, God speaks to us in a still small voice, right? Beth Moore thinks so. She tweeted, there's a time to give up and a time to keep trying. Sometimes the time to keep trying feels a whole lot like the time to give up. The only difference is the still small voice of the Holy Spirit within you saying, try again. And again, this is just one of thousands of examples I could give to you. So, a still small voice. I mean, that's in the Bible, right? I mean, it's in the Bible, so God does speak to us in a still small voice, right? Well, it is in the Bible, but it's only in one place in the Bible, and it's only in one translation, the King James. If you don't have the King James translation, you will not find that phraseology, still small voice. You've got to have the King James. But it is in there, so let's look at it. 1 Kings chapter 19. Now for context, this is Elijah, and Elijah had just had that dramatic victory over the false prophets of Baal. Remember, he called down fire from heaven, destroyed the false prophets, destroyed their altars, destroyed their sacrifices, lapped up all the water. I mean, dramatic victory. And then right after that, Jezebel threatened Elijah's life, and he got scared, odd thing, after that big victory, and then Jezebel got after him. And so he got out of Dodge. He fled into the wilderness and ended up in the back of a cave. And this is where the story picks up in 1 Kings chapter 19, beginning in verse 11. Now, the language here is King James English, okay? And he said, go forth and stand upon the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. There it is. The only place in the entire Bible that you'll find it, and it's got to be in the King James. So, what was this still small voice? Well, the next verse tells us. And it was so when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice unto him and said, What doest thou here, Elijah? What are you doing here, Elijah? So you see, dear friends, the still small voice was not some inner impression inside his head, like everybody thinks. Oh, God speaks to you in a still small voice. This little, still small voice inside your head. No, it wasn't a still small voice inside Elijah's head. It was not internal, it was external. It was not subjective, it was audible. The text says he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out. After he heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out to the entrance of the cave so he could hear this voice more clearly, which was outside of the cave, not inside his head. It was an external, audible voice, just like you are hearing my voice right now to you externally, audibly. So can we please do away with the whole still small voice thing? This has been completely taken out of context and turned into something that it never was in the first place. And I'll take it a step further. What we read here in 1 Kings 19 is descriptive, not prescriptive. Okay, one of the fundamental hermeneutical problems of the charismatic movement is they interpret practically the entire Bible as prescriptive when a lot of it is descriptive. In other words, they take things that are described and they automatically think that they are also prescribed for us. There's a ton of things in the Bible that are described that are not prescribed. God parting the Red Sea is described, but it's not prescribed. Have you ever seen God split a body of water? I hadn't either. Talking donkeys are described, but they're not prescribed. Have you ever seen a talking donkey? I hope not. If you have, you should probably lay off the suds a little bit because you've been drinking something too enthusiastically that you shouldn't be drinking. So there's a lot of things that are floating axe heads are described. They're not prescribed. Okay, that's one of the fundamental problems. This is described. It's not prescribed. But charismatic and most people today even get the description wrong. It's not internal. It's external. It's external, audible voice. So please, let's do away with the still small voice thing. Well, since I burst that bubble, let's burst another one. How about John 10:27? My sheep hear my voice. I mean, that's in the Bible. You can't argue with that, right?